Two experts in ICF.
Yeah.
Decades of experience.
Uh-huh.
One podcast.
Yeah.
Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, because really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build With ICF podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the girl boss. And she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build With ICF podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt. Yeah.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Since our last podcast I guess it was your rant
Right.
on our last podcast,
Right.
we've had quite a few questions come in, which we had quite a few questions before, but that sparked some new ones.
Yeah, we've got a lot of topical stuff. So episode 42, we're going to do back to listener questions. So we went back through some of the older questions, trying to get some of these answered for people, and then a few topical ones that are kind of happening right now in the world that we thought we'd talk about. So also just coming off the World of Concrete. So This is our first episode after the World of Concrete.
Which, I didn't get to go, so you got to give
Weird
us
year for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been there for so many years. It's kind of weird. And everyone kept asking where you were. And
Everybody thought that Whitney was me.
yeah, it was kind of funny to walk around and like people to recognize us. It was just, it's weird to be walking through and people be like, hey, you're Trevor from the Build ICF podcast. I'm like, oh my God, there's enough people to listen. I love it. It's wild. It's so funny because Whitney was with me and I had all the boys and they'd like, oh, is this Heather? Yeah, well, kind of, sort of.
My mini me.
Half Heather.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it was kind of fun, but it was super awesome to, have a few people come up and recognize us, want to talk to us, and a few people that are going to be on the podcast. So we've got some people who came up and talked to us that are going to be on that want an opportunity to talk about their experience with ICF, which I think is great because I think that's kind of a direction that we can go with this. I've had a lot of people ask for, real world builder guys to come on and talk about their projects and to do different things, that have to do with the
We did the one episode
industry
with Dave and Brent on kind of homeowner testimonial, and Brent was the builder on that. We need to do that again. But
yeah, we've got another Dave that's going to be coming on as well that I spoke with that out of New Hampshire, and he does large commercial. I mean, he's been doing it for a while, but he's worked his way into doing a lot of large commercial stuff. Won some awards at the awards deal, so he's killing it and wants to come on the podcast to talk about it. And we've been wanting to get somebody on that has that kind of experience. So excited to have Dave on.
Speaking of awards.
Yeah. Congratulations to our very own Wade and Alexis Hansen with King Stud. They actually took home first runner-up in the small residential category. So super cool. Their first time ever putting in for the award and getting to get up on stage and get a plaque was pretty awesome. We were pretty stoked for them. So they've been great clients and partners of ours for many years and have done a really good job.
Very cool to see them getting some recognition for their hard work.
Yeah, man, they busted it. And they crushed it. That house at the parade just like swept awards. It was joking that they needed a bigger kitchen countertop to put all their awards they won on, but they did great. So congratulations to them. And we were super proud of them and look forward to more award-winning projects with them for sure. So there was a lot of good awards and we were going to do a recap of the deal. I don't know that we need to do that. If anybody has questions or anything and wants that, let me know. We could, but yeah, cool stuff. I mean, the World of Concrete just gets bigger every year. It just gets more, it's just crazy to see more, the growth, the bigger boosts of the ICF. I mean, obviously concrete's a huge industry and ICF's just a part of it. Blown away at like walking through though and seeing how many more ICF centric products. There were,
Yeah.
more
Accessories
tools, more
and tools, yeah.
accessories, more, people recognizing it more, people putting samples of their product on ICF. I mean, I think it's just for everybody listening here, obviously we're all ICF geeks, but like definitely drove the point home that, man, we're in the right place. I mean, things are really, really taking off. It was something that we're just continuing to, like I said, every corner you came around, whether it would be a waterproofing product, they would have a sample on ICF. If it was, drafting software, they would, we'd say, oh, what do you guys do? Oh, we do ICF. Oh, we have that setting in our, we can do that. So just a ton of different things where people were like, yeah, our ICF, we work with ICF and we do it this way. Like where before, a lot of times it was kind of funny because you could just say, well, I'm an ICF guy. And they'd be like, oh yeah, we don't.
Or they'd be like, what?
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
Or, oh, we don't do anything with ICF. And so, it's kind of nice to get you out of, the sales guy chatting with you if you didn't want to talk to him. But this was, seemed like everything was just like they were catering towards ICF a lot. And then obviously we're fresh off of all the fires. I had just done my rant. Actually,
Yep.
that launched on Tuesday while we were there. So I had people that actually were listening to it coming up to me like, ooh, you got a little fired up. I said, yeah, I was a little fired up.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yep. You handed out some shirts, some
Did.
swag while you were
Handed out
there.
Some swag to some listeners that posted up some pictures and posted with us and stuff, tagged us in some posts. I have heard that one of them got stolen, so that never made it to Harvey. So I guess we got to take Harvey another shirt because apparently it got hijacked before it got back to Alberta. But anyways, yeah, no, it was awesome. We had some good times, got some shirts out, got some people out. It was super cool, getting ready to head back for IBS here pretty soon. But anyways, speaking of the fires, we'll go through some of the questions that have been generated about the, a lot of the fire stuff has come up.
Yeah, your rant, your episode there kind of triggered quite a few questions, and I know that we've both responded to a lot of those. But the one big thing that came up a lot was, is there a more fireproof ICF? Like, what are the options when it comes to ICF and being fire resistant, fireproof, all of that kind of stuff?
Right. And it plays into again, this is, I'm not going to get all fired up again, but this kind of gets into the situation of like, ICF is better than stick frame. Let's just agree to that. And then within ICF, yes, there are, that kind of was the question. Like, well, okay, is there actually better ways to do it? And to give credit, because I give credit where credit's due, there are companies out there that are working on, a more fireproof ICF. And so we're actually have been approached. One of the companies actually, has reached out and wants to be on the podcast, and looks like we're going to put something together to have them on the podcast. But it's basically the one that you're seeing the most of, I would say, that I think is probably the most talked about right now is the polyurethane blocks. So just changing the makeup of the material from an expanded polystyrene to a polyurethane. And I won't get into it a ton as far as the differences of that, because like I said, I believe we'll here in the next few episodes, we'll have an episode on that, because I don't want to speak about it because it's not something I'm familiar with. And I try to stick with what I know in a first person basis. So I don't know, a lot. I've done a little bit of research online and looked at it. Difference in the makeup of what the block is made of, but it's still the one I was looking at is still a monolithic wall, continuous wall. It's not a post and beam, which I don't agree with a ton. So yeah, it looks like just a same block with a different makeup,
of foam on the outside.
And then basically what it is just more fire resistant to the burn or the melt. Because the biggest thing I tell people, and that's why I was telling on the other one, is this doesn't just ignite on fire. It you can put a torch on it. It'll melt a hole in it, or it'll turn to liquid, but it won't actually ignite and start a flame. So the other thing is that people really kind of brought to my attention was, and again, I'm kind of recapping what I talked about in that, but just because it did come up quite a bit, was the discussion of keeping, the importance of making sure you airflow into the house, because that's where the fire is going to come in. So getting, and I'm not sponsored by or plugging Vulcan vents. I know there's probably others out there. That's just the one that I am aware of that we've used. But Vulcan Vents is a brand of vents that has fireproof venting that can stop fire from going in, making sure that you don't have open soffits and stuff like that where it can get up into. So, just stuff like that is huge. I'm still going to, a lot of people want to argue the defensible space thing. I still think it's kind of irrelevant.
I think it depends on where you are.
In certain situations, it doesn't hurt, but it's, when you're in a fire that's blowing 100, or 50 to 80 miles an hour and flames are 30 feet tall, I really don't think your defensible space is going to help you. But that was, something that came up. And so anyways, but yeah, a lot of it is going back, just to recap. Yes, there are some blocks out there. I'm not downplaying the importance of some of these new blocks that are coming out that are more fireproof, but I am saying that all ICF is way more fire resistant than
a stick frame.
Than a stick frame house built out of matchsticks and kindling. So that's what I'm getting at. That was basically what I meant on my rant was, it's better. Let's not all sit there and just beat the crap out of each other over which ICF is less or more. So anyway, but we are going to have some answers to that, because that did come up quite a bit. People asking and people mentioning these other blocks that are coming out that are more fire resistant, and we will get them on as soon as we can to talk about it, because I'm not an expert on that. So
okay. All right. Next question. So this one, I think you're going to have to, for some of our listeners, define a couple of things. But somebody asked us, can you do a level 5 sheetrock finish on ICF?
Yeah. So
first of all, what's a level 5?
So level 5 finish basically means you're putting the sheetrock on and you're going to skim coat it. It's going to be a very flat, non-textured finish. So it's going to be very flat, very modern, and it's very popular in a lot of areas.
Very smooth.
But it is very hard to hide things.
Yes.
It's like somebody wearing tight white pants. You're not going to hide a whole lot of dimples in there. So it's
okay, good way to put that.
Yeah, but it is, you're going to see everything. So that's that they're getting at. And but good question, because it is something that people worry about. And I would say, again, my opinion, that you've got a way better chance of having a flat wall with an ICF wall than you do with a wood wall. So, and especially in longevity, you could say, yeah, my framer's going to make this perfectly. They're going to use the LVL studs, or they're going to, there's a lot of ways to make a stick frame wall very, very straight. The problem is the movement later that's going to happen in it. So it all comes down to a good flat install. So when you get done and that concrete gets hard and the wall's flat, then it's gonna stay flat. So you've got that going for you. I will admit, all of us that have ever installed ICF, we've had walls that are not straight, or
not perfect,
not perfect walls.
Just like in stick built.
And so what I would say that is part 2 of the answer is if you do have something in an ICF wall where you do get a wow or anything in, it's very important that, you as a general contractor monitor that and make sure you're checking that the walls are straight, because what happened, and this happened to us on a job recently, the wall did have a little wow in it. The sheetrockers just came in and screwed it right to the wall and took off. And one of the great things about ICF is we have webs that will hold up to, 180 to 200 pound pullout, and they are every 6 inches, and the guys love to hit them with screws and tighten that sheetrock right up to the wall, so that it is going to definitely telegraph anything that's behind that wall. And unfortunately, that will make the wall look a little wowed, because they don't really care. They're not, they slap it up there and then they leave, and then the painter comes in and trim guy comes in and they have to try to fix it. So it is important that you make sure that those walls are dead straight, and you communicate with your sheetrock guys like, hey, if you see something, then we can float it. They don't need to tighten it right up to the wall. Like, sheetrock only has to be attached every 16 inches. The fastener does not have to be everywhere, so you can actually adjust a little bit if you do see a little bit of a dip or a bow in a wall. A lot of times you can do that. The other option is to float that out. They can actually take mud and they can float it out to flush to try to straighten it out.
Yeah, and you can also use a drywall rasp and kind of shave down the foam a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. And we've done that quite a bit. I mean, there's stuff where you just get some, wall that bows a little bit. Then it's very common to take, it's not even sheetrock rasp, it's actually a stucco rasp, but they used it as a big giant rasp with a huge, big, rock diamond looking things on the other side, and it'll knock it down in seconds. I mean, you'll be able to flush it right up. So yeah, just making sure that it's good and flush and putting it on there. It's going to stay way better. I mean, the best studs out there are going to get moisture in them. They're going to heat. They're going to contract. They're going to, heat and cool. So there's going to be a lot, everybody that's ever lived in a house built out of wood has heard the walls pop. Well, you crack during certain times, in nighttime when it's getting cold or hot or whatever, you'll hear the walls pop and crack. Wood's going to change and it's going to pop and crack. So that does not happen with an ICF house. It does not pop and crack. You do not get expansion contraction going on. Obviously in 100 years, yes, there is, some shrinkage in the concrete over time, but you're not going to see that issue in the wall. So
no. And one of the things that I've noticed both as a builder and then also living in an ICF house is our callbacks on sheetrock nail pops. We don't have them on ICF,
which is standard.
Which is a standard thing that you get on a wood frame construction, because even though the lumber is kiln dried, it's still wet when you're building the home.
There's usually 19% moisture.
So it's still going to move, versus like even in our house, our interior walls are wood framed, and we don't have the nail pops because we're a constant temperature all the time.
Yeah. And so like I said, I guess to the answer to the question, I believe that anything you're doing sheetrock wise is you just got to make sure you're starting on a good surface, but the surface itself is going to be way, way, way better than putting it onto a wood wall. Anytime you get a wood wall that's going to have that kind of, it's, you're never going to have a dead straight forever wall either. So.
All right. And then.
Oh, okay. This is from Kim.
Kim and
our Canadian listeners.
Oh, okay.
She reached out to us, so shout out to Kim for sending in a question.
So she wanted to know about he or she. I didn't check. Kim wanted to know about.
That's a good question. It's a she, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, I saw it. It was on Instagram, so I saw.
Okay.
It. Yeah.
All right. Well.
Sorry, Cam. We didn't mean to question it. We just had to think for a second.
I didn't know, so didn't want to assume.
We know Kim's on both sides.
Yes, we do.
Play for both teams. It's like, well, I don't know how to say that, but
male and female versions of.
That's what we know.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. But so what Kim wanted to know was how do you go about hanging cabinets on ICF walls?
So the hack with that is, and I think this isn't. I don't feel like this is anything extra that you have to do. It's just a little more convenient, is exactly where your cabinets are going to go on the wall before you build the house, So going in there and before the sheetrockers come in, sticking up some 1/2-inch sheetrock in those areas. Or plywood, before the sheetrock guys come in. Just gives you a kind of a foolproof way. It's not that big of an expenditure over, anything else. It's pennies, so it's not a big deal. But you throw that up there and it just gives that cabinet guy a pretty much a no-brainer. Wherever they want to attach a screw, they can. And so it is very helpful. So sticking that up there, not required. Let me be clear.
You've got to make sure that you get the fastener into a stud. Same as on wood frame. You've got to get it into a stud. If you screw a cabinet up onto a wood framed house and you miss the stud, you have nothing holding it in.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to go right into the foam, you want to go into the polypropylene web. But I've had several cabinet guys that they don't do the whole area. They'll do strips, at the upper part and the lower part in the plywood, so that they can still see where those webs are in between, and then can hang their cabinets up, no problem.
Yeah, and so the couple options there. If you're just going to do sheetrock, obviously your sheetrockers are going to be able to see the studs. They're going to put their screws where the studs are. So before everything gets textured and everything, you can go in there and you can mark off where where your cabinets are. You can measure over and you can mark off where the on the wall where the studs are. That will help. And then, like I said, the other kind of is just doing a plywood across the whole thing. Not required. It's got a higher pull-out rate than a stud, so you put it when you're hitting the stud, but you have to hit the stud. We joke about this. The house we're sitting in right now, the company that put the siding on, they're like, oh, it's ICF. We can just nail anywhere. We had issues with siding coming off, and we went later. Everybody's like, see, these ICFs, it doesn't come off. And I'm walking around the job with the owner of the company going, This is just shot into styrofoam. There was 3 inches either way, they would have hit a stud that has a 200-pound pullout rate. This is not coming off where it hit a stud. It's coming off where you didn't hit the stud. So doesn't matter if it's ICF or wood. If you shoot it between the studs, it's not going to stick. So just knowing that, just knowing where they are. Marking is one way to do it. Just making sure you have those marked. Another nice little cheat tool is whatever brand you use, they have a layout somewhere on their website of their blocks that will tell you what the measurement is. And you can actually go from a corner and measure and then just mark every 6 or 8 inches depending upon the spacing of the web. And you're usually going to hit the studs pretty effectively that way. So, good installers should be lining up all the studs. So
yeah, before we get to sheetrock in a build, we will have our electrical, mechanical, plumbing walkthrough, and we also do a walkthrough with our cabinet guys at that time, so that they can take pictures, make notes. A lot of times we end up drawing the cabinets on the wall, just so we can map out exactly where the hangers are going to go and where we need to put everything. So they have that. So once it gets covered up, it's already noted. They've got pictures, and we know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, it doesn't, like I said,
it's not difficult.
It's not difficult. But like if you want to eliminate the question mark there, then probably the easiest answer is to stick some plywood, 1/2-inch plywood up there. It's pretty simple. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just some CDX, plywood up there and just lay it out wherever you're going to have that. And then basically your sheetrock guys are going to come in and just sheetrock right up and over it. So it won't be any big deal. You won't see it. All good.
Okay.
Thanks, Kim.
All right. The next question. This has been a big question that has been coming up. So we kind of skipped over some of the other questions so that we could get this one on here, because it's a big topic of interest right now, and that is the tariffs. So what is your thought on the tariffs?
There's been a lot of discussion about this.
I know. It's been all over. We were getting emails constantly from NAHB, from,
we are in the U.S.
companies.
Majority of ICF companies are Canadian. So there is a big issue now with the Trump tariffs on Canada and Mexico and China. I would say, one, I'm just out there. Don't worry about it as much. I'm not too terribly worried about it. I think a lot of it is, and we're already seeing that it's somewhat of it's a heavy-handed tactic to get some things done that need to get done. So I don't think that's going to happen. I do believe, because of just my involvement with the National Association of Home Builders and on some of the emails and calls and things that I'm on, that we are, as an industry, in very close communication with the White House and the lobbyists and the people for our industry to make sure that they understand. I mean, that both candidates prior to the election were running on the affordable housing platform, a little bit attainable housing. So I do know that the Trump administration does have concern for affordable housing. So all we're trying to do at this point is, between Carl and Jim Tobin and the upper, level guys at the NAHB, Lake Colson, some of these guys that are actually talking to the people at the White House and are on, you'll see them on CNBC and CNN and Fox, all those guys. Those guys are in their ear right now, letting them know, like, hey, you understand, like, this is what it does. So I do believe that it's a scary thought a little bit. I have heard that some companies probably, the guess would be that there would be a little increase to people in the U.S. for Canadian product, but it would probably have to be absorbed a little bit on the manufacturer side as well. So I don't think anything's going to be straight across the board 25%. The other thing is that we do have manufacturers out there that are manufacturing in the United States. So there is the option of that. And I hate to see, because I have a lot of very, very good friends, Canadian friends, and people that, make their living making ICF blocks in Canada, selling into the U.S. So I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see them lose business and have people shift over to that. But just for the sake of our listeners and calming the panic a little bit, there is a lot of manufacturers that manufacture in the United States that are not going to be affected by this. So I think that we have an out there. We have a figured way to deal with that. And a lot of even the Canadian manufacturers have manufacturing in both.
Yes.
So I mean, they can move.
Sometimes it just doesn't make sense, because you've got a plant in Canada on one side of the one side of the United States, so it's closer to ship from that than it is from their manufacturing plant that's in the United States.
Right.
But it's all things to look at.
Yeah. And so I don't know, like I said, this has been a big question. People asking about it. I'm not super concerned about it. Kind of keep going with what you got going on right now. I wouldn't suggest that you don't order some stuff right now, before anything is. If you're
ready for it and you've got a place to put it,
you've got some stuff coming, I would get your orders in just to be safe. I do think there could be, like I said, I do think there could be a short-term hiccup a little bit with it happening, like just to prove a point. Sometimes you have to, if you're trying to get your point across, sometimes you got to play pretty heavy-handed for a minute, and then they kind of come around. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was something where we, like I said, in a short interim that went full 25% tariff, everything kind of came to a screeching halt for a minute, and then it got figured out. I like to think there's a bigger picture here for that. And like I said, I have faith in the fact that the administration, that they are very aware of, we're dealing with a couple things. In the building industry, we've got two things that are really, really affecting us in this situation. We've got the tariffs and we have immigration, and it's both hot topics. The biggest thing, and they both severely affect us in the building industry. We have a lot of non-documented people that are installing ICF, that are working for construction companies, that are doing things. So right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not going to get into what my stance is on any of that stuff, but it is something that we are all being aware of, that it is affecting us, and that it is something that I know is scaring some people. I think I don't know. I'm old, and I've seen this stuff kind of happen, and it's usually a flash in the pan. It's usually forgot about a few days later kind of deal. So I do think there'll be some effect of it. I don't think anything in the world doesn't have any effect, but I do think that most of the things that happen in the world have less effect than what we think they're going to have. So, and
every time we figure out how to move forward with it.
There's always a pivot, and there's always something that happens, and you may see companies that, because here's what they're trying to do. Essentially, like I said, from my understanding, I'm not a political expert, but I'm involved. This is a play to make sure that we get more manufacturing and things into the United States. And, that's what this administration's looking for, is to make sure we're keeping more of that to us. We do want the trade agreements, but there's also things where in other industries outside of what is affecting the ICF industry, that they have issue with some of what is being charged and being done by these other countries. So it's border policy. A lot of it has to do with border policy. They can flex a little bit on this to tighten the border up and make them, if they don't do XYZ, then you're not going to do ABC. And it's usually stuff that's not necessarily connected at all. So I do think that it's just something that's going to be figured out. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that it all has a bigger plan to make it work. I think it'll be kind of a short little bump in the road here, I hope, but we all figure it out. Yeah. So we all stick together, we all figure it out, and things will, we went through COVID.
That's what I was just going to say.
We went through I went through, that was like some of the busiest sales times I ever had was during COVID, and we were dealing with not being able to get polypropylene, and the webs
we were
back
going
ordered.
from a 2-week lead time at most
2 months,
to 2 months.
Some of it. Yeah. So a lot of people were pivoting to different brands because they couldn't get it from one person. Yes. We all kind of figured out a way to keep moving, and I had some of my best years during that time. So,
and the ICF manufacturers figured out how to pivot and how to produce more and how to get, meet the requirements or the orders.
Yeah. And I'd like to think we can all kind of stick together and help each other out too. It's another time where I don't want to see infighting. I want to see people taking care of each other in that. So,
well, and it's not, these tariffs aren't only going to affect ICF. They probably have a bigger effect on stick frame.
Yeah, a lot of it. There's the biggest things I saw is we get a lot of steel out of Canada, which affects our rebar for us. We get a lot of softwood lumber, which is going to affect the stick framing, that doesn't hurt us too much because the more expensive it is, the better we look. And then ICF, just because primarily most of our companies are all based out of Canada. So there is that thing. And then the biggest one, Mexico, the big thing is gypsum for sheetrock. So they're worried about, we can't, a lot of our raw material for gypsum comes out of Mexico. So I think there's some stuff like that does change. I think they'll get it figured out. I don't think it's going to be, like I said, I see this as a blip. I don't think this is going to be a major issue for us. So anyway, That's that. I'm not a political expert. Again, everything I say on this podcast is my opinion, and so take it for what it's worth.
And opinions are like beef. Everybody has one, right? All right. Well, we'll keep our episode today to right around that 30-minute mark. Keep sending in your questions, guys. Thank you so much for the questions that were submitted. Like we said, we do answer the questions. We don't make our listeners that send in the questions wait until we get a chance to record a listener question episode. But keep sending in your questions. Follow us on our socials at Build With ICF. If you can send them in, info@buildwithicf.com. Visit our website. All those things. Our shirts are up on the website now. People can order those.
Shirts.
We got more stock plans up on the website. The store, I got to work on that a little bit. The storefront is giving me a little bit of issue, but
And that's been a big thing. I guess we can do a shameless plug because we pay for all this stuff. But the innovative drafting design has gone ballistic here lately with people wanting plans and just reminding everybody we draw plans for every manufacturer. So anybody out there
all
that's
across
listening,
the United States and in Canada.
Yeah. We say our tagline we use in our advertising is your dream begins with a plan, and we mean it. The plan is where it all starts. If you want to get accurate numbers and you want to get accurate budgets put together for your job, come up with the money for your plan first. I mean, it's it's a very small part of what you are going to spend on the whole house, but the sooner you have that plan locked in and in hand, the quicker you can start getting true accurate numbers of what you want to do and start saving up for your house. So don't wait to the end when you're ready to get a construction loan to then get your plans ordered. So definitely reach out to us at buildwithicf.com. The drafting website is also...
It's on there. Or Plans by IDD.
Plansbyidd.com. Reach out, get a 30-minute free consultation with Whitney or Heather.
Yeah.
You might get either one of them. Whitney's getting too busy, so Heather's having to step in and do some consultations now, which is a good sign. But yeah, we're happy to work with everybody, every different plan out there, everything that you guys are doing, and we're drawing plans in Canada and the U.S., so we've got all the engineering and everything for that. So please let us know. That's something that's really been taken off for our businesses, and we're excited to help people because it just moves more product. The more plans we can draw, the more ICF we can sell, and the more people are in safe, resilient homes. So hit us up at buildwithicf.com. Shoot us an email at info@buildwithicf, and obviously at buildwithicf on all the socials. Keep hitting us up, and we will see you on the next episode.